I want to show you an absolute mess of a road. Wait, come on. This is a prime example of a stroad. It attempts to be both a high-density arterial boulevard and at the same time a marketplace. And it kind of just ends up being bad at everything. It's honestly not a pleasant place to walk through. It's super hot, so noisy. The air smells like shit. It's also a nuisance to drive through. There's too much going on. People are unparking and moving. Buses are moving in and out of bus lanes. This is just a bad road.
This is Fordham Road in the Bronx, and in today's episode, let's see how this road is being shaped by the politically powerful and how their ideas may be unknowingly hurting this community. As always, remember to like and subscribe for more urban planning news, stories, and history.
Jesus Christ.
You can get 10% off at Fordham Road stores by just showing your Metro cards.
Really?
Fordham Road is particularly interesting to me because of the political drama that it has stirred here in the Bronx. These scenes of cram metal boxes are not some sort of rush hour anomaly. The New York City Department of Transportation itself has noticed that road conditions have deteriorated over time on this road. In certain parts of this street, they've measured that average driving speeds hit 4 miles per hour. 4 miles per hour. Bus ridership along the road has also dropped significantly since 2016, and this is likely due to how slow and unreliable the routes have become. But the New York City Department of Transportation actually devised a fairly good plan on how to deal with the congestion for its riders. But before we go into that plan, let's look at what Fordham Road looks like today. Currently, Fordham Road in the Fordham Business District looks like this. The road is a 6-lane road. The side roads are bus lanes, and the 2 middle lanes are just standard vehicle lanes. Along this road is a sidewalk that local shoppers and pedestrians use. The road still has many awkward intersections that add to the congestion. The road is also a major arterial boulevard for people trying to get into Manhattan from the Bronx. But probably the most damaging part of this road for the bus lanes is the amount of double parking that takes place on them. Many businesses park their trucks on the bus lanes to load and unload them. Delivery drivers will double park their vehicles as well. Street vendors that set up on the sidewalk will occasionally leave their vans for the whole day in the bus lane. This forces the buses to move out of the bus lane and merge into the standard lanes. These bus lane parkings cause a snowball effect that require the bus to get out of its lane. Then cars in adjacent lanes need to move out of the way for the bus, and so on and so forth, causing even more congestion on the road. Okay, now let's look at the plan that the DOT devised and presented in March 2022. The new plan would create what the DOT calls a busway. A busway blocks off all traffic for private vehicles. Instead, only buses, emergency vehicles, and commercial trucks would be permitted on the road. The busway would only extend through the main Fordham business area. Everywhere else would have their existing lanes upgraded. Now, of course, before proposing this plan, the DOT did its due diligence to make sure this plan actually made sense. They participated in some community outreach to determine how the locals get around in the area. The department also surveyed the locals to figure out how they felt about a potential busway. And overall, the numbers were very promising. They found around 86% of people arrived to the street using either bus, train, or walking. They found 70% of people supported a busway being built in the area.
Okay, so everything is good. The community expressed a lot of support for the plan. We know that many people who travel to Fordham Road travel by bus. We also know that this plan would help those that commute to Manhattan during the week. So the Department of Transportation went with a plan, right? Come on, what kind of channel would this be if urban planning was that easy? No, the DOT was quickly hit by opposition from various groups. But most specifically, it was hit by the Fordham BID, the Business Improvement District.
The Fordham Road BID, the outdoor mall experience.
The Fordham BID is responsible for the management of this commercial area.
In July of 2022, members of the Fordham BID, along with City Council member Oswald Felice, and Fordham University Vice President for Administration Marco Valera wrote a letter to the Commissioner of the DOT. They stated that closing any portion of the Fordham Road to vehicular traffic will result in many negative consequences.
Deliberation continued on the plan on Fordham Road, but the opposition decided to up the ante. 3 months later, in September 2022, an aggressive op-ed was published in the Daily News by Peter Madonia, the chairman of the neighboring Belmont district. In the op-ed, he accused City Hall of trying to disrupt a tightly knit
Bronx community. Peter Madonia was specifically concerned that the busway would hurt his neighboring business district in Belmont. He claimed that 85% of people that came to the Belmont business district did so by car, and that the busway would interfere with their commute. In doing so, though, he didn't provide any sources and instead said they had this information from their marketing data. Which, I'm sorry, if you state that taking away something will damage your businesses by 85% of whatever metric, you need something to back up that claim. Especially considering that if we look at the Fordham BID's own data, we see that only 15% of people arrive to the business district by car. So either Mr. Madonia flipped his numbers around, or they should really get a new marketing service. But okay, let's get back to the timeline. While opposition continued to mount, the DOT didn't seem to budge. And I mean, why would they? They had the data, they had the surveys, and everything seemed to suggest that this would improve the congestion on the road. The DOT also had several case studies as they have implemented busways in other places such as Flushing Main Street and in Manhattan, and both have seen only boosts for local businesses. So the BID, Peter Madonia, and other members of Bronx's elite decided to sidestep the DOT and go directly to the mayor. A letter was drafted to Eric Adams. This brotherhood of businesses invited the mayor over for dinner due to the urgency of the ramifications if this busway got built. They refer to the design as an existential threat. Okay, drama queens. First of all, existential threats include things like nukes, asteroids hitting the Earth, antibiotic-resistant viruses, and climate change. A busway, a dedicated busway in the Bronx, is not the end of the world. Secondly, this is a prime example of how one-sided political influence is. Even if the 74% that said they were in favor of a busway, or the 86% that the DOT said take public transit to get to Fordham Road, or the vast number of people that depend on the busway to get to Manhattan asked the mayor to get dinner, there is no way, never, ever, the mayor would sit down and talk with these people. But it's ultimately these people that will lose the most. The people that depend on public transit to get to work. The people that need to get affordable food from Fordham Business District. The small shop owners whose livelihoods depend on these customers as well. Let's say the Department of Transportation's data doesn't matter. All influential parties have already demonstrated they don't care about that data. Let's take a look at data that business people might care about. Financial data. The Bronx is not a wealthy area. Compared to all other boroughs, it has the largest number of households living off of 60,000 or less, with this demographic making up 68% of the borough, with nearly 30% living below 20,000 or less, further deteriorating the literal lifeline to other parts of the city for people in the Bronx is criminal, especially considering that time to the person living in unfortunate circumstances is so much more valuable. To the person working a 10-hour shift, the difference between a 30 and a 60-minute commute is the difference between making your kid dinner when you get home or putting them to bed. But their efforts worked. The Fordham BID, Peter Madonia, Fordham University, the Bronx Botanical Garden, the Bronx Zoo, they got what they wanted. The busway project was canceled. The business leaders in the area are now working to add parking to the area and maybe create an offset bus lane. This will create dedicated parking along the road and shift the bus lane one lane over. However, I'm telling you, just the way the bus lane today is not being used and constantly is being blocked by people parking, the same will happen with this new bus lane. Buses will have to move out of the way as people park in front of them, further snowballing the congestion effect, except now there will also be people meandering through the street looking for parking spaces. This is an even worse idea. This plan will slow down buses even more and further induce car traffic. It will also create the expectation that the local community spends its limited resources on investing in the automobile, which I cannot stress enough is so financially irresponsible for a community limited by resources as represented by this financial data. For the Fordham Business District, the correct answer is the busway. This story in the Bronx and the episode I did on McGinnis Boulevard in my previous episode are prime examples of why it's important to be active in local politics. While Mayor Adams flip-flopped on the McGinnis Road design, I still envy the folks in Brooklyn more. In Brooklyn, at least they have a community of voices that still support the cause to make McGinnis Boulevard a safer street. I cannot say the same for the communities around Fordham Road. There are plenty of influential and powerful people involved in local politics. And while many of them are probably good businessmen, school administrators, and museum directors, it doesn't mean that they know anything about transportation design or engineering. Without your involvement, there's a good chance they may inadvertently hurt your community. Join me next time when we will explore another urban planning story. If you have a story in your community that you'd like to share, please leave it in the comments below and I'll check it out. Until next time, remember to like, subscribe, and keep on walking.